Welcome, everybody from Knox's page and Knox. My name's Lise, and welcome to the first episode of the People Library podcast. Created this platform so people like Knox can tell their stories, talk about current events, be heard. That's something that I was extremely passionate about. And I've seen them kind of just hold things in, not be validated, and I had to do something about it. So I created the podcast. On today's episode with Knox, we're going to be talking about drugs, death, and DID. Also about some current events that we cannot ignore right now that are going on in our community. So also I'm going to put a trigger warning because we'll be talking about addiction. We'll be talking about probably some suicidal thoughts and mental disorders. And because the podcast is kind of delicate and vulnerable, I kind of created this, I think it's like a speedy personality round, so we can kind of get to know our guest more. And I just thought of some really basic things that we can talk about with them instead of just knowing the vulnerable story that we talk about. So, Knox, what are your pronouns?
I will literally whatever you call me is totally fine. I have a very fluid energy, and so I completely and totally understand when people are like, you feel like a masculine person, you feel like a feminine person, you feel like a non-binary person. It's like whatever it is that you feel called to me in that moment to call me, that's almost like a message in and of itself. It tells me what part of me you are relating to in that moment. And that gives me an indication of where you want me to meet you, which is my most important priority in all of the healing work that I do. So any pronouns are totally fine.
Okay, and how old are you?
It's my birthday month, so I will be 29 this month, and I have already started celebrating. I know it's the 1st of July, but maybe I've already started celebrating me.
Just the month.
I deserve a whole month.
Yeah, because I am dating a Cancer, and yeah, that you guys very much talk about how it's your season. That's like stuff that he's brought up, like, it's my month. I'm like, okay. Okay. So what do you do? What's your occupation? What do you do?
Oh God. So that's a hard question for me to answer because there's so much as to what I do. I'm a healer. I'm a networker of spiritual folks. I am a promoter of those who have something to provide from the heart. I am a witch and practitioner myself. I'm a tarot reader. I'm an oracle. I'm a channel. I'm a light worker. I'm a grid worker. I'm everything and nothing all at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yes, I actually really like that. And okay, so the next one is, where are you from? Which you just came home.
I did. I'm a traveler. I'm a nomad, so I move around as I so please. But I am originally from Minnesota. That's where I was born, and my family now resides in Michigan. So This is what I consider my ancestral lands, where it is that my extended family is from, where it is that my family all congregate now. So yeah. Michigan/Minnesota.
Nice. And I know the next one you kind of, people who could probably guess it because you said it's your birth month, but what's your zodiac sign?
So I am a Cancer sun, but I'm also a Virgo moon and a Capricorn rising. So I'm emotional,
Really?
but I'm grounded in those emotions. And I get very serious about what it is that I am here to do. That Capricorn energy in me is very much like I am here to fulfill a purpose. I am here to complete a goal. I am here to, sustain myself, my family, and my community. And that's it.
Okay, so this one's like super random, but I always like asking this one. What's your favorite color?
Oh my God, purple. Purple,
Really?
100%. Anybody who knows me, and I know it's super faded right now, but knows that like my crown is always purple. I always dye my hair purple. Everything in my life is purple. I was once told by a friend who was channeling for me and doing some healing on my behalf that every time that I saw purple, I had to evoke the name of Archangel Raphael because Raphael wanted me to work with him more, and he knew that I would see purple so many times in a day because I'm surrounded by it that I would have to call on him over and over again.
I
So
love that.
absolutely 100% purple. I am a purple person.
That was my favorite color growing up for sure, and I think it kind of switched to like black and green, but purple was definitely my color as a little girl. Okay, and
Well,
so I got.
that
Oh, sorry.
makes
Go
so
ahead.
much sense though, because green is the contrasting color to purple. So they still go hand in hand,
I
and
mean,
black goes with everything.
like I love me some foresty autumn colors. So
Oh,
the next one I'm actually really curious about for you because sometimes like as I've been typing these out, I kind of try to like guess people's if I don't already know them. But the next one
yeah.
is what's your biggest fear?
Oh,
Oh yeah.
oh. Um, so, oh God, it's really interesting because I feel like this is a shadow work prompt that I now need to go into a little bit deeper because like surface level Knox wants to say like, oh my God, I don't like clowns. Clowns are not cool. Like really dark, silent spaces give me anxiety. Things like that. But I think that my deepest fear is truly that I will waste my gifts and not fulfill like the powerful being that I am and what I'm here to do, you know, what I'm meant to
Mm-hmm.
do here. I think that like a lot of people think that we have a fear of success, and I don't necessarily think that it's that. I think that I have a fear of responsibility. I have a fear of like
Oof.
the weight of what it is that I'm here to do and what I feel called to do. And that is probably the one thing that holds me back from doing it. You know what I mean? It's so
Yeah.
oxymoronic because it's like I am so scared that I won't fulfill that, but that's the one thing that holds me back from it. So the more that I overcome that and the more that I step into my power and step into who I truly am and what I'm here to do, the more that I realize how fucking afraid of myself I am. You know what I mean? Like, it's just,
Yeah.
yeah.
I understand you on a very deep level. It sounds like our fears are very, very similar. So that's really interesting. And so the last one for our personality speed round is what was the best advice you've ever received?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. For the last two, I had to get a good.
Yeah, that's so hard because obviously I'm a reader and a spiritualist, but I also go to so many other readers who have given me such profound advice. And of course, now I'm blanking on like all of it. I'm like, have I ever received advice before in my life? But
It could be something you live by too, if that makes it any easier.
yeah, I mean, wow, so profound. Honestly, I think the best advice I've ever been given is anyone who ever taught me about authenticity and integrity. Be integral to who you are, be authentic to who you are. Don't allow for others' perception of you to influence how it is that you act and how it is that you move forward in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that has been my key to everything. And when I fully understood that being integral to myself was allowing the words to fall out of my mouth,
Mm.
that changed my life. because as a channel, right, like so much of the profound wisdom that I gain is from spirit directly. And
Hmm.
so a lot of times I struggled with like, well, how can I be integral to who I am when I don't know who I am? How can I be
Oof.
authentic when I don't know what that looks like, right? And so I think that realizing that my authenticity was simply in my unfiltered nature. You know what
Hmm.
I'm saying? Like the fact that I am capable of just letting the channel go and letting my ego step out of the way and things to fall out of my mouth. That is authentic to me. And so it doesn't matter if what I'm saying today is different from what I said yesterday or what I'll say tomorrow. It's an ever evolving authenticity. And by being integral to who I am, or by allowing that channel to be, I'm being integral to who I am.
Yes. I think it's such a leap of faith you have to take too, because it's so easily like misseen as just someone who's being flaky or
Yeah,
like, yeah, and it's just like, no, I just don't feel this way anymore. And I think it's, it's
right,
really how we deliver it, what makes such a big difference. Um,
right.
so thank you so much for that. So I didn't know some of those things about you. That's why I love doing that. But I like that I created that part so I can actually just see a little bit more of who I'm talking to, you know?
Yeah,
So I think,
absolutely.
yeah, the thing that I'm so curious with what you have to say, because we're both very powerful speakers, okay? And we're both very affected by what's going on in the world right now, being a part of the LGBTQ plus community and also being born a female. It's like a double hitter right now. So, what are your thoughts on Roe versus Wade? These things that they're trying to take back, making it illegal for same sex marriage. Like, how are you doing? I guess really is what I want to ask.
Honestly, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. But because I understand that at the end of the day, this is another divisive ploy that's being set forth by the powers that be. Excuse me. I think that the entire conversation is meant to siphon our power and our energy into one particular issue that the people making these decisions literally don't give a fuck about.
Mm.
They don't care. They don't care if you are pro life, pro choice, any of these things in between. They don't give a shit. They just want us fighting with each other so that we're no longer doing the things that are ascending us into a place where we have the power to stop the entire system. They're instead trying to distract us and say, no, you need to squabble amongst yourselves
Hmm.
because obviously you disagree with one another. And it's like, you know what? I have been pro-choice for a very, very long time in my life. And that is because I believe in human rights and I believe in us being able to make decisions for ourselves. But at the end of the day, Liz, like energetic sovereignty, energetic law is something they cannot change. They cannot fuck with. And I will always have my energetic sovereignty. And if I am intended to not have a child that comes about me, I will find the healers.
Mm.
I'm just not afraid. I'm not afraid of them trying to impose control over something they don't have control over, truly. And I think that it's much more important for us, especially at the height of summer, at the height of light energy.
Hmm.
It's no mistake that they did this now. It's no mistake. And so by allowing ourselves to drop back into what is truly important, which is our own energy and our own understanding and understanding and overstanding of what it is that's going on in the world and how it is that we are being siphoned and controlled. I think that's the conversation that we need to be having. And this is not to diminish the importance of what has happened.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they would use control in this way. I do. My human is pissed,
Mm-hmm.
but my higher self just sees past it and understands that it's distraction. It's a game. They're trying to play us.
Yeah.
And I won't be played that way. You know, at the end of the day, I am a powerful woman and I do have sovereignty over my own body. And I will be damned if you tell me what I can and cannot do with it. But I'm also inventive and I'm magic. And if there is a will, there is a way.
Hmm. I think it's really beautiful and interesting that you talk about it in the way that you do, because I think the fact that you said you have no fear, because that is a game of fear that's going on right now.
Yeah.
I think that's what's so important to people see when they see past that part where what's happening and how it's tragic, then they can get to the level of enlightenment that you are. Like, no, I'm not afraid. My higher self's fine. I'm doing fine. And, and I'll admit, like, for someone like me who just got a reading from you, I was instilled with a lot of fear because I'm scared to be myself. And right now is a call to see who's going to conform out of fear or who will shine through regardless and be themselves. And that is something that I was not prepared to answer so quickly. And so I love that I can hear and be inspired by your response, because there's still a little bit of that ego that I'm still working with to stop trying to grip to the fear to be myself, because it can easily be very terrifying. Like I'm have a survivalist mindset. Like I always like to be prepared for things. I kid you not, I have like a 72-hour food kit in the kitchen. And I expressed to my partner, I said, I need to get like a bag. I need to get like the army backpacks. I want to have stuff within it because they already have theirs. I want one too.
Yeah.
And if anything, I kind of like that. I kind of have a little more confidence in my womanhood because of this.
Yeah.
And
As you should.
yeah, that's what's been really interesting, is that now I'm like, I need this for myself. Like, I can't be dependent. Even though I have the luxury of depending on a beautiful man, that's amazing. But right now I feel like I need to embrace that healthy independence a lot. Like I just feel like my chin just wants to be a little bit higher. And I thought that was very interesting to notice as this has been happening. But thank you for that, because that was a really lovely and beautiful insight on that. So let's hit to our first topic, death.
Oh,
Okay.
yes. I didn't even realize it, but I wore this shirt today just for this topic.
Oh my God. Cheerlead yourself. There you go. So how would you say you view death? Let's talk about that.
An illusion. An absolute and total illusion. It's not real. Um, Death is a transition. It is moving from being physical to being non-physical. And that's literally it. At the end of the day, the people that we have quote unquote lost, that have been that have passed on, are not passed on to anywhere. They are right here with us. They are very tangible energies. They interact with us. They share with us and guide us every single day. Mischief, could you not do that right in front of the camera? Sorry.
No, you're okay.
But yeah, I think that it is an absolute illusion. I will say that it took me many, many, many years to come to that conclusion, though. I started experiencing death when I was very young. My grandmother passed at 10, and that was a thing of its own. She was young, she was only, I want to say in her 50s or 60s. She was very young, but not young enough that it struck me as unusual at that age. I didn't really know any better. Um, and then the next year, I had a friend who committed suicide, and she was 12, I was 11, and that's when it really hit me that like people's physicality are not permanent in this space. They're not permanent in this realm and on this earth. That was when I realized that people could leave me without it being their choice to leave me.
Mm.
And I very much, got pulled into a state of grief. And it was only a couple years later, on my 15th birthday, actually, that my cousin died in a fatal car accident. She was 19. You know, her dad died a couple years later of a heart attack just in the driveway. You know, there have just been so many people around me that have left through death. You know, and when I talk about this, it's interesting because I will have some people who are like, yeah, absolutely, I've experienced death like that, and I'm so sorry that you've had to go through that. And then there are other people who are like, I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine, you know? And then it really all hit a turning point for me when I was 24, and I had lost my best friend to a pulmonary embolism that led to heart attack. So essentially she got a clot in her lungs, and that led to so much pressure that it crushed her heart. And that was my best friend. That was Jubilee. And she's also who has taught me since that the people who have left us, quote unquote, are still very much here. You know, my connection with her is just as strong, if not stronger, than it was when she died, you know? And yeah, I just am no longer in a space where I don't know, where I feel sad about it. I can feel like those other parts of me who experienced that and who, you know, really grieved that, and I can feel their heartache, and I love them for that, you know, because it tells me that they loved so deeply that it could hurt so painfully when somebody leaves. And that's a gift. That's a treasure. But now in my perception, I just understand the tangibility of the spirits around me, and how much they interact with me, and how much they are more present than my fucking physical friends at points. You know what I mean? Like, when all else fails, when nobody will answer the phone, Jubilee will answer my call. You know what I mean? Like, it's always been that way. So my views of death are wild, you know? I find it to be truth, but a lot of people, I think, would look at a situation like that and a viewpoint like that and be like, wow, that's really unsympathetic for you to say, you know? But it's like, I understand your pain, and I understand how it can feel that way. But the more that we understand energy, and the more that we understand spirit, and the more that we understand the expression of energy in physical versus non-physical and how they interact, the more that we can come to peace with our loved ones who have passed.
Right. So, and I know it clearly seems like that shaped your spirituality, but how did you handle it before you had such an enlightened view on it, when it first kind of came into your life?
I didn't. I very much coped with whatever substance I could get my hands on. I very much fell into a place of alcohol will make me feel better, drugs will make me feel better, cigarettes will make me feel better, coffee will make me feel better, caffeine will make me feel better, food will make me feel better. All of these things, I just had all of these coping mechanisms to try to lessen a pain that I was only feeding with those substances. And I was only continuing to kind of fuel the monster, that was my addictions. And it took me a very long time to get out of a space of that. But every time that I had a new death, it like reignited that same wound again of, okay, somebody's dead, got to get trashed at the funeral, like it was very much that. It was very much that.
So what was your waking up moment to that? What triggered that to change for you?
It's an interesting question. I think that the change was triggered not even I won't even lie here, not even in my ability to cope better, but in my realization that I didn't need to cope. That when birthdays and death days rolled around, I didn't have to fall into this state of I need to cope with their loss because I was celebrating their presence. I was too busy celebrating their presence.
That's very beautiful. I like that a lot. I actually really like that a lot. So I guess for this subject then, for somebody who is going through or has death either currently or they've dealt with death repetitively in their life, what guidance, what words of wisdom would you give them if they were
Talk
like you?
to them. Talk to them. Talk to the people that have passed on. Cry with them. Share your pain with them. Hand your pain over to them. Ask them to help you. Ask them to heal you. Ask them to show you signs. Find ways of anchoring their existence in your life. Because when you anchor their presence in your life, I promise you, they will always show up. They will always show up. And I think when I am the most vulnerable and the most grief-ridden are the moments when they show up the loudest. But I also think that, I know that spirits a lot of times have a hard time showing us signs and showing us the synchronicities and showing us their presence here, because they know that it triggers that grief. So there's a part of the process where you have to really allow yourself to feel that pain. And that's hard for a lot of people. That was hard for me. I pushed it off for years and years and years, feeling the pain of so many deaths. But when I allowed myself to really allow my human, essentially, to process through all of that emotion, I became more available for them to reach out to me and to show themselves to me. So I think that there's a balance, right? There's a balance between allowing yourself to feel the grief of the physical thing you have lost, while also allowing yourself to celebrate with the physical presence that's left behind. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I'm guessing, because something just popped into my head to ask you, because I don't know why, I'm just going to go with it. But what's your view on assisted, suicide? What's your view on that?
Ooh, that's interesting. Wow, I don't know that I have an answer for that. No, I do have an answer for that. Whether it's assisted or whether you do it yourself, I love you. And
Mm,
it's okay. It's okay that you didn't have the strength to live in this human existence. It takes strength to be here. It takes strength to endure what we endure here. And the payoff for some is extremely beautiful. And they find ways to engage in the joy and love of life. But if you feel like this incarnation is not something that you can do anymore, that's okay. It's okay to go back and start over. It's okay to go back and start over, you know?
it's really
Trix
interesting.
just said over on this side, she said it takes strength to leave too. And that's so
Yeah.
true. That's so
Yeah.
true.
I think it's interesting because my belief that I've been saying so much recently is that as somebody who has idolized the attempt to unalive themselves, I feel like I can speak a pretty good amount on it. But all I will say is that now to help me keep that strength, something I say to myself and that I currently believe in until I elevate or find something else that resonates better with me, is that if I unalive myself, when I start all over again, do I think that it's going to be easier? Because I view it as a lot of backed up contracts, and I also signed another one. So
Yeah.
I
You're
try
not
my
wrong.
best. Yeah, I try my best to handle it now because if I can barely handle this, I know I won't be able to handle the next one. So I'm trying my
Right.
best to finish it.
Yeah. No, I totally feel that. I for the longest time have been like, girl, you are level 28 right now. You really want to start back at level 1? You want to start back at ground zero? Like, absolutely not. You've got to level
Yeah.
28, and that's incredible. Like, keep going. Don't stop now. You'd have to, exactly that same sentiment. Like, you'd have to start over.
Yeah.
And that's horrendous to think about.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and then so I want to get to our next segue to go in there with the drug aspect of it. Um,
Mm,
so
fun.
yeah. So speaking of the addictions that you had or how you coped, how you know what you did what you could. So how old were you when you started struggling with addiction?
Oh my God. When I started struggling with addiction, who was the first friend I had? I've been addicted to people for as long as I can fucking remember.
Ooh,
So
preach.
there's that aspect to it. But if we're talking substances, I mean, I grew up in a household and a family where drinking was just part of the norm. It was just what everybody did. You got together and you had drinks. So, I mean, I started drinking at like 12, 13, you know? Um, but
Ooh.
I started really struggling with it after Kara died, after my cousin died on my birthday, my 15th birthday. That's when I started sneaking shit. That's when I started, finding that outlet. And it was probably a couple years down the road. I was like 17, 18 when it started to get bad. And it
Mm.
started to get to a space where and not like terribly bad. I say bad from the perspective of like I was always a good little girl and I did everything, so like a couple instances of this to me was bad at the time,
Yeah.
right, quote unquote. But I I knew that I had addictive tendencies. I mean, 17, 18, I started smoking cigarettes. I started, drinking more often, um, having more, binging more when I did drink. And then when I was 19 is when I started dating this guy who, um, now, mind you, I know nobody will believe this when they hear it from me, but when before I was 19, I was very much like, drugs are bad, bah, 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 da, 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 like all that kind of shit, right? And meanwhile, I was drinking, right? Just
Mm.
another drug. But I saw things as like marijuana and stuff like that as drugs too, right? Natural medicines that were drugs. And so I started off with this boyfriend smoked weed, and so I started smoking weed with him. And then it was not, I will preface, it is not that the weed was a gateway. Alcohol was much more a gateway. Peer pressure was much more a gateway. And my addiction to people was much more a gateway. Because when my boyfriend started to introduce me to harder shit, I was not willing to do what he wanted me to do.
Mm.
So I did. And that's when I started taking like prescription meds. And that was my bullshit, right? Specifically like Vicodin and Adderall, and together all the time, uppers and downers all the time. And so that escalated to 3 years later. I'm spending every month, we would get our scripts for something and
Mm-hmm.
take everything in the first week or two, and then spend 2 weeks detoxing and withdrawing. And then we would get our script again, and we went through this cycle every fucking month. Yeah. And so it just destroyed me from the inside out. It was to the point where, I mean, I was 21, 22, and I like could barely walk up the stairs to my bedroom because I thought I was in so much pain because I was taking Vicodin. And so for those of you listening who don't know, opioids block pain. They block the receptors in your brain that tell you that you're hurting. When those receptors are blocked, your brain sends more pain signals because it thinks that you're not getting the message.
Mm.
And so it actually, over habitual use and long periods of time, it doesn't decrease pain, it increases pain because you're taking them for so long that your brain thinks, oh my God, my human doesn't know that she's in pain. How horrible. Let me send 6,000 more pain signals. So like, I thought my knees were falling apart. I thought my back was breaking in half. I didn't know what to do. I was in so much pain, I could barely move. And I was 21, healthy otherwise. You know, like, these substances really, really fucked with me. They really fucked with me. Now, with that being said, it did open me up to other forms of being and other like altered states of consciousness, right? I also engaged in use with psychedelics and things of that sort. I was no longer afraid of those substances like I had been prior. So it gave me the opportunity to explore and to learn about those substances that were good for me, you know, that did make a positive impact in my life, that did open up spiritual gifts for me, that did bring me this sense of enlightenment and connection to spirit. And so for as much as I am like, the drug days were bad, like that was not a good time for me. I was extremely stressed out. My body was under tons of stress. Mentally, I was done, like completely gone. I mean, I worked a full-time job as a caregiver and then came home and took care of my ex every single day. That was what I did. I cared for people 24/7, which is in my nature to do. But at that level was so extremely detrimental to me. I was sick. I was falling apart. My body was unhealthy. My spirit was unhealthy. My mind was unhealthy. It literally tore me apart. And, you know, the breaking point for that was a really interesting story. It was my birthday, and my ex and I were out looking for one substance and ended up getting sold another substance. And I will I might as well name names because I've been naming everything else. We were out looking for Molly and we got sold meth.
Oh,
And I spent the next 6 hours combing through the carpet trying to find little chunks of Vicodin to calm me down
holy
because
shit.
I was so upped. And after that night, I had this aha moment. I had this coming to spirit moment. I had this breakthrough of what are you doing to yourself? What are you doing to your body? Why is this your life? Is this the life that you really wanted? You want to do this every day for the rest of your life? And I I was done. And I came home that morning and my ex and I obviously, I mean, like, we were not in a position to pay for anything, parents at the time. And I walked in, his parents looked at me and they were like, we need to talk about so and so. And I was like, no, we don't. I don't want to take care of him for another 30 days. I want to take care of him for another 30 years. I don't want to take care of him for another 30 minutes. I'm fucking done. I'm out. And his mom looked at me and was like, good for you, honey. Good for you.
Wow. She actually said that.
Yeah. Because
Oh,
she
that's
knew.
great.
She knew how fucked up it was. You know, she
Mm-hmm.
knew what was happening.
So when you say addicted to people, oh man, I could feel that. Like, I think it's so true and so possible to be addicted to love, to people. Because I was never addicted to a substance, but I always said that I was addicted to love and people. So when did you think that you kind of had that where you noticed it, that you might have had like an addiction with people and relationships?
Oh my gosh. I think it's one of those things that I've always known. Um, I've always known that it wasn't particularly healthy to be as attached to other people as I was. But it's something that to this day I still struggle with. Um, I think that my true aha moment, God, recently,
Mm-hmm.
within the last year, genuinely. Um, but oh yeah, that's a good point. Thank you, Spirit. I think that it got to be its worst in my last relationship where like it was not even like a relationship. We were
Mm-hmm.
casual friends with benefits type polyamory bullshit. Not that I think polyamory is bullshit, but that particular brand
Yeah.
of polyamory was bullshit. And I got to the point where I was willing to fuck with people who were genuine, loving friends for the sake of not having to be alone on some night. It wasn't even
Mm-hmm.
every night, but some night. And I sabotaged an entire friend group. I mean, an entire community worth of people that loved me and cared for me. I threw it all the fuck away
Mm.
to sleep with some guy,
Oh
you know?
wow. Yeah, I
And
I do understand that.
when it all blew up, I went, woe is me. Oh my God. So poor Knox. I've been thrown under the bus. It took me months to realize that I deserved to go under that bus. Now, mind you, I was made the scapegoat, and other people who were not thrown under the bus at the time, it took them
Mm-hmm.
longer to get thrown under the bus. But karma caught up,
Yeah.
as she does. So, we all got what we reaped what we sowed out of that experience, right? But I
Yeah.
think that it really taught me what it meant to be attached to somebody like that and what it meant to have this level of codependency and this level of addiction to another person and specifically to another person's energy,
Mm.
right? Because it wasn't that I was addicted to all people. It wasn't that I was going out every night in search of just anyone. It was a particular kind of energy that I just couldn't get enough of. And I'll tell you what, it was narcissistic energy that I just couldn't get enough of. Because at the end of the day, as an realized clairsentient, somebody who takes in the energy of everyone around them, the most calming and soothing thing to me was somebody who felt nothing.
Oh my, you know, I'm getting a little like mind screwed right now because me and you are very similar people. And I'm like, okay, I know I've had horrible relationships, a lot of horrible relationships because of my addiction to people and needing to not be alone. And yeah, like this last relationship almost literally killed me. And like I am someone who takes on everyone's feelings where I'm overwhelmed and I don't know how to block it. So that would make so much sense that that's why I went to those people. Oh my God. Okay. Well, thank you for
Sorry,
the
didn't
point.
mean to make you do shadow work here, but here we
I
are.
mean, hey, I need to swing back into shadow work. I was a shadow work junkie where I was doing too much. So I had to really like I think when you're so desperate to heal, you'll push through anything just to get everything to stop. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Why do you think that you were pushed to that point to begin with?
yeah.
In order to cause you to
Yeah.
fast track, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, like that's that I think that it needs to be talked about so much more because we see so many of the young people getting these horrible, very harmful relationships. And it's just, and most of the time, like there are these people who are very, very sweet, will give anything to the people they love, who they're the people that you see on Snapped. They're the people that, you see completely losing their minds because they just wanted to feel nothing but that person who has nothing in them so evil that it just makes them like snap. It's insane to me.
Yeah.
That's insane. But something that I really want to get interested in because one of my most things that I was excited to talk about with you was your take on DID. Okay, so for those who don't know, so I'm going to read the definition of DID for everybody to have that with them because they're actually surprising. There's a lot of people who don't know what it is. So
Yeah.
DID is a dissociative identity disorder. It is a mental health condition. People with DID have two or more separate identities. These personalities control their behavior at different times. Each identity has its own personal history, traits, likes, and dislikes. DID can lead to gaps in memory and hallucinations, believing something is real when it isn't. And dissociative identity disorder used to be called multiple personality disorder or split personality disorder. And then just for people who don't know what disassociation is, it's the disconnection or separation of something from something else or the state of being disconnected. So just for educational purposes, so everybody knows what we're going to be talking about. Yeah, so let's get into it. So I just want to like literally dive, no fancy way. I just want to get into like the thick of it.
Into
So
the thick of it.
yes, I know that's what yeah. We're going to the woods. Okay, sorry. So, do you think? My first question for this category is: do you think all mental illnesses are more of abilities rather than disabilities to people? Or do you think it's just
100%.
certain ones? Do you think it's
No,
all of them
all
or
of
do you
them.
think it's okay?
All of them. All of them. There is every concept, every idea, every function, every experience within this reality has both a high and low vibrational way of looking at it. The same is true of mental health, okay, or mental quote unquote illness, right? The lower expression is what is focused on, right, of bad mental health. But what happens when you find the healthy expression of that thing? That's a gift. That's an expression of something that is differing, because really what they mean by mental health disorder is your mind, your mental facilities is different from the normal, whoever the fuck defines that, right?
Right.
And so they're saying you function differently than what we have categorized as normal. And so therefore there's something wrong with you. Okay? The exact same people who are, for example, say on the autism spectrum, who are looked at as, or maybe at one point, I feel like we've gotten better with this one as a society, but at one point we're looked at as lesser, as, disabled, as whatever. They were the oracles in ancient times.
Mm-hmm.
They were the seers, they were the scryers, they were the witches. People who struggle with mental illness, all quotes, air quotes around everything, are witches and healers and light workers reborn into this time, where instead of calling us witches and workers of Satan, they're calling us mental, we have mental illness. They're
I
just
think it's
putting
more
a
of a,
different label.
yeah, it's struggling to be oppressed, really.
Thank you.
That's what the struggle is. Yeah, because as someone who has her own diagnoses of a couple of things,
Cheers to that.
yeah, I really think that, because I recently was in a psych ward for a couple of weeks. I'll be transparent about that. There ain't no shame in my psych ward game. But
Absolutely not.
yeah, so, and I realized that when I go in there, I have to prep myself like, hey, remember, we can't tell them that we do hear things. We can't tell them that we see spirits, because they're going to call you a schizophrenia, but then when we look at the shamans and everything, this is what their life work is. So if I went, I desperately would love to go to a society where they would almost teach you and give you the stories that you need to survive the gifts you have, because they're gifts.
Why do you think like, and we're talking along the lines of addiction and mental illness, right? Why do
Mm-hmm.
you think that people go to these extremes with things? It is literally because they are trying to get closer to spirit. They are trying to get closer to the energy, the non-physical energy that they once were in, completely encased within. And now we're stuck and confined in this 3D dense ass shit. And we're just trying to get back to that. And so as we explore with our minds, or as we use substances to explore, we're opening ourselves up to these lower vibrations of those energies and those spectrums that exist within us. And we fall into those categories, right? Of
Mm-hmm.
of things working against us instead of for us. But when we find the way to harness that energy and to say, you know what, this is not my detriment, this is my superpower, we raise it up ourselves through our own belief systems, not through what society has told us, but through our own
Mm-hmm.
belief systems. We raise that energy up to a space where we can utilize it for not only our own health, wealth, and well-being, but the health, wealth, and well-being of the entire fucking planet. And that is powerful, my friend. And so if anybody out there listening to this right now is somebody who has been diagnosed with any sort of mental quote unquote illness, that is your superpower. Find the high vibration of it, use it to your benefit,
Yeah.
use it to your furtherment along your spiritual path, and I promise you, you will not be disappointed.
So that means I am ultimately dying to ask this next question. So, okay, hopefully, if I butcher it, I butcher it, but here we go. So, bear with me. What is your take that when you awaken and start on your spiritual journey, what is your take on the theory that every single person going on a spiritual awakening goes through and experiences each type of mental illness? Like when somebody's tripping
Oh,
on shrooms or acid, they have where they hear a whole bunch of personalities at once, have different alters, but they're not diagnosed with it and it went away after the trip. Or people who do shadow work, they go through their dark night of the soul and experience, bipolar disorder. What's your take on that, if that made sense, hopefully?
That made total and complete sense. If you are experiencing those things, opening your mind up. You are literally cracking open the parts of your subconscious mind that utilize these functions, right? When we talk about DID in particular, right? DID is the result of extreme trauma, and what the brain does in the instance of this extreme trauma that the conscious mind cannot hold and process the way that it's supposed to, it gets compartmentalized and stored into not only a subconscious part of the mind, because it's a conscious experience. It's something that you should have access to. So the brain has found this miraculous way to separate that bit of conscious experience into an entirely different personality, an entirely different energy, so that you don't have access to it until that energy says that you're ready for it. Now, who do you think fills that energy? If we were just cracked open and split into all of these different pieces, who would come in to fill those energies, to be tangible in our reality? Our guides, our ancestors, our past life experiences, all of these different parts of our perception that have existed throughout time, space, dimensions, and all of the spaces in between come forward and materialize into this personality, this energy that you have tangible access to. So now, granted, you have experienced a very traumatic thing, and your brain has fragmented that part. Your energy has fragmented that part into something so separate from you that it holds its own energy, its own personality, its own identity. But it's filled with one of your guides. It's filled with something that can help you to heal so that you can bring that part of you back in to the core, into who you are, right? It's a tool that our brains are already hardwired to do. So now when you talk on the sense of like complex PTSD, right? It's no longer this split where it fractures off entirely, but you do have different parts, right? Different aspects of the self that are like petals on a flower, right? The core of you is still the flower. It's still the whole thing. But each of these parts is its own petal. And as you move further and further and you become more and more traumatized within each aspect, you move further away from the core, but you're still connected via this petal. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so in those aspects, you have all of these different versions of self, all of these different identities, right? I've got, I've got psychic Knox, and I've got goofy Knox, and I've got stoner Knox, and I've got, like all of these different aspects of who I am. They all are different energies within me as well that can be utilized. Maybe one part is seeing things differently than another part. It's all about communication with yourself, right? And diving into that communication with self and saying, you know what does my 15-year-old self have to say about this? Because she had a thing or two to say about things. And I know that she is wise, and I know that she is brave, and I know that she's encountered beautiful things. And on top of that, if she has a perspective that I'm holding within my core as a belief, then I need to talk to her about that to heal that belief so that I can change it and help her to understand how things are different. It's all the self. It's all different aspects of the self. It's just drawing it back in to how do I utilize this? How do I take control of this situation in the ways that I can control it? I think that a lot of times when it comes to mental illness, we feel very powerless to it, right? Society has told us that this is something wrong with us.
Exactly.
There's nothing wrong with us. In fact, there's everything right. with us. I think there's something wrong with somebody who can not empathize with being anxious or being depressed or being, any of these things.
Mm-hmm.
But to answer your initial question of what happens when we get into this space of, induced altered states of awareness
Mm-hmm.
through substance, what have you. And we have these experiences that are very similar to mental health experiences or mental illness, quote unquote, experiences. I think that's our wake up call as a society to say, wow, maybe this is a more enlightened way of existing and of being. And we're trying to open ourselves up to that thing. Because I am not at a point in my life where I can look at a schizophrenic and not see a seer. I'm not at a point in my life where I can look at somebody with bipolar and not see a clairsentient.
Mm.
I can't look at somebody who hear voices and not see a clairaudient. Like, I just can't.
And that makes so much sense. And it's just like, I feel, because there's the part where people who talk about when people who have been through trauma, they have to do all this extra work, the shadow work to go through and find their center. But some people, it does make sense to believe that the people with the quote mental illnesses are the most awakened people because they've seen like honest brutality, honest tragedy, honest injustice. They have been forced to see these things, usually very early or very harshly, where it's just now it's the fact of learning how it has connected them, I think is more of the thing they go through.
People who have experienced severe trauma in their lives, I don't think you need to be doing shadow work. I don't think you need to be doing shadow work. I think you need to be doing light work because you recognize shadow. You recognize shadow like the back of your hand, but you don't recognize your light. You don't recognize your light and your power, right? Wow. All you've ever seen is shadow. Of course you know what shadow looks like. Of course you know how that works.
Dude,
it's been ruling and controlling your life, your entire existence. But now is your time to step into light. I know. I just cracked something. Baby, up the channel. Please.
Man, like, wait, I wasn't ready. Because she just said, like, because this, honestly, in my own spiritual walk, this makes so much sense to me. Because every time I do shadow work, it inevitably leads to a dark night of the soul where I have to stop completely. And I have never tried doing light work. Never, like, I'm gonna try this. Like, I'm definitely gonna switch this because maybe this is that something that I needed to find. All of us who are going through so much turmoil, either regret, PTSD, CPTSD, and wondering why we're journaling the crap out of things and we're still struggling. Yeah, I'm aware of this, but now I'm hyper aware what I was already hyper aware of. I mean, yes, it gives me more wisdom, but still now I'm stuck and wanting to unalive myself again and wondering why it's this constant insanity of a cycle. There's no light mixed in there. Or what really,
you've got to have balance.
Man, I wasn't ready. I really like that. I mean, I guess what I'll push to, because I want to hear more about what Jubilee did for you for your spiritual journey.
Yeah. And it's funny because in our entire conversation about DID, not once did I bring her up.
Yeah, which is really interesting. Yeah, because so let's bring her in.
Yeah, just to catch up the viewers at home. So Jubilee was my best friend. Is my best friend. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's pure.
Who had DID and who really, sorry, I need to center myself in what it is that she wants me to share and how it is that she wants me to share it.
You are A-okay.
I was 17 when I met this girl who became my best friend, became my other half, always was my other half. And I knew that something was different about her. I knew that she was magic. I just knew that she was magic. And slowly it was revealed to me that not only was she magic, she was more than one. She was a collective of beings that worked through her. And it took me a really long time to uncover and discover that. But through my knowing of her and my experience of her, my experience of the altars, and all of the other beautiful people that she introduced me to, who also had DID, also had altars, and they all interacted with each other. The altars in astral space were interacting with each other from person to person. I'm talking like Jubilee's altars and their altars were engaging with each other, having relationships with each other, like everything. And I realized at a certain point that this was real, that these energies were real. It wasn't just something that she had made up in her head. It wasn't just something she was doing to get attention. It wasn't anything like that. These were energies that she had access to. And I realized it was a miracle. I realized that it was so beautiful. And years later, now, after her passing, I realized that those incarnations, not even all of them were hers. Some of them were mine. But they had always been together. We had always been together. So, of course, they would come into her physicality and through her trauma to guide both of us. And it just was so, so beautiful to witness and to experience, you know. And at that point in my journey, I couldn't access them the way that I would have wanted to. And she got me to try all the time. She was like, can you see this person? Can you see this altar? Do you know what they look like? Like, tell me something about it. Tell me something about it. She was always pressing me and pushing me for that because she knew what I was capable of, you know? But at that time, I mean, I was a stupid kid. I had no idea what the hell was going on. I just knew that this girl was magic and that I could not have been more attracted to her, like in every sense of the word, right? It was like magnets. You couldn't keep us apart for the longest time. And I was what she referred to as her outer court, her outer circle, right? Like I was the being that was outside of the system, but still a part of the system, still integral to the system, because every energy, every part of her that came forth and through that body, I had unconditional love for. I didn't give a fuck. I didn't give a fuck who was fighting with who and what was going on in that system and who was at war and what was happening. I loved them all. I couldn't help it. I love her being more than I could ever express. And so it was this beautiful symbiotic relationship where she got to experience somebody who would love every part of her, no matter how big and scary it seemed. You know, most people were intimidated as fuck by her. They were like, oh my God, literally scared. People would like walk away in fear, like run away from her. Like she was very intimidating. She was a very commanding presence, and she was the sweetest person ever. But if you fucked with somebody she loved, she would kill you. Like there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Without remorse, without anything, she would murder. Like I'm just plain as day, right? Like you did not fuck with her people. And they were all like that. They were protectors, they were guides, they were mothers, they were sisters, they were everything. They were us. They were us. And I just came to this profound realization that she had unlocked something that I didn't have access to in the same way. And as much as anyone tried to call it a disorder, I was like, no, dude, like that's pure fucking magic incarnate. Like you're not going to convince me otherwise. You're not going to convince me otherwise. And so over the course of our friendship, she and all of the alters did subtle things, little things to try to ignite awakenings within me. I remember, I will never fucking forget this. The first time that she looked at me, she was like, "Oh my God, you don't know how to be a fucking person. Like, you don't even know how to be a fucking person. What the hell is this? You're chameleoning to everybody else. You don't know how to be your own person. I've got to teach you from the start. Like, are you kidding me right now? Okay, fuck." And she did it with love. You know what I mean? But she very much was like, fuck, dude, okay. And so from that day on, she started introducing me to Wicca. She introduced me to the craft. She introduced me to past lives. She introduced me to Atlantean timelines. She introduced me to all sorts of shit that at the time I was like, this is maybe a little nuts. This is maybe a little nuts. You know, I was 17, 18, 19, and I got scared. I got scared of it all. And although she had opened my eyes and awakened me to something, I desperately wanted to go back to sleep. And that's when I started doing drugs.
Wow.
On the other side of the drugs. And mind you, she was there for me through all of the ups and downs. She drove me to the psych ward. She she was there for all of the big moments. She was there when my boyfriend went to jail. She was there when, I had breakdowns and all of this shit, but she couldn't be there every day like she had been before. She couldn't help me. I had to face that myself. And after I sobered up, she made me wait a year, a whole ass fucking year before she reached out. And we reconnected and we're right back to where we were every day, spending time with each other, connected like magnets. And after a month, she died. I got one last final month with her in the physical and with the altars in the physical before she died. And now they are all my strongest guides.
Oh, sorry. That one kind of, all right, hearing it again like that, just knowing, because I resonate with, even though nothing compared to the intimate beauty of your guys' relationship, but there was someone that I did get close to when I was in high school, and I seen her 2 weeks before she accidentally OD'd. And the last thing I said to her was, please, if you need anybody, reach out to me. That's the last thing I said to her. And so it's really eerie, but also a beautiful gift when you know, like, especially like what that gift was, what it was for, to have those moments with her. And God, oh man. So I really love your take on DID, because it's not one I had ever heard from anybody before. And I think it kind of helps us bring down the stigmatism of fearing people who are schizophrenic or have DID. Like, oh my God, they're so scary. Like, and I've been with somebody. I have I think I have like a great aunt or something who has schizophrenia, and she's the sweetest person I've ever met. And sometimes I swear she speaks as if she's getting a download, like the way
Because she
they
is.
talk. And it's so beautiful. It's just if it's the same thing, not the same thing, but it's kind of like the same mentality of when you take a cold shower, you have to control your brain not to go in shock, right? Ease,
Mhm.
accept it, allow. Same thing with any new experience, especially with these people who have these beautiful abilities. It's more so intimidating that they're so connected, not so much that you're afraid because they can't control themselves. Like, no, like really watch
Yeah,
them.
no.
If we switch the lens, just take the lens. But I also resonate with you on just that sentence of wanting to go back to sleep. And I was like, oh, that hit me. Mine was actually around late last year when I wanted to go back to sleep. And it was after a couple awakenings, but when those awakenings go so hard, it's like, no, I just want to be happy in a white picket fence house. Leave me alone. I don't want to know this. I don't want the responsibility to know this. Like, and it can be very scary. And that's why I just always make sure to advocate, and why I became a baby spiritual coach for that reason, because people who are entering in spirituality, it can be terrifying. But if you
Hmm.
have someone to kind of lessen that blow, who's there with you to, she's like, hey, it's okay. Like, it's just, it's really different, but it's okay. To really keep
Yeah.
that open mind and open heart. Yeah, I think everybody goes through that in their journey about really just wanting to turn it all off and go to sleep. Not necessarily die, but just not wanting to be awakened anymore.
Right.
And yeah, so how would you say that she shaped your spiritual journey, like after she died? So after you kind of like, because didn't you struggle with your addiction after she died, right?
A little bit. Yeah. Yeah. I went back to I never touched pills because I knew that she would literally rise from the grave and murder me and take me with her, which I mean at certain points was tempting. But I dove back into alcohol again, and it got to the point where I couldn't sleep at night if I wasn't plastered. I mean, drinking like a fifth a day, kind of drinking,
Oh man.
yeah, it was really, really bad. But she, she just always found a way to get to me. I spent a lot of time pushing away the messages, and pushing away her attempts to contact me. And like I said, I spent a lot of time in such deep grief that anytime
Mm-hmm.
that she did try to reach out to me, I would just fall apart. And so it took a couple of years before I was capable of receiving information from her.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but in the meantime, any spiritual person that I was around, she would like bombard them. She would literally be like, "I'm trying to get through to her. Like, will you please tell her this and this?"
Oh.
And like, it was all the time, because I literally couldn't get a message from anybody that wasn't from her because she was spending so much time trying to get a hold of me.
Oh.
And it's like my phone was just on busy signal all the time. Like, I'm sorry, the person you're trying to call is currently intoxicated and cannot receive this message at this time. Try again later. And she's like, stuck,
No.
but it after those couple of years, and as I started to realize how necessary it was to honestly practice what I preached, because for years and years and years I was like, I'm a witch, but I didn't fucking do anything, like I wasn't practicing regularly. I wasn't, celebrating the Sabbath at a regular basis. I wasn't celebrating the new moons and full moons. I wasn't doing the witchy practices. And it took quite a few years for me to get to a space where I was ready, and it's only been the last 3-4 years that I've really like gotten serious about my practice and gotten serious about what it is that I'm here to do, and much more so in the last 2.
Yeah.
But I think that she shapes my spiritual journey on a daily basis. She is constantly giving me signs, constantly giving me direction, constantly assisting, because at the end of the day, that's why she left. She left this world, and I fully believe that this is what happens, right? That there are certain beings who come into this world to live for a short period of time, and they do so intentionally so that you recognize their energy, and then they leave and they become the guide for those people who need to continue along the earthly journey. The thing was, we always knew, like, anybody who knew her, if you talk to them, like, they'll tell you Jubilee was next level. Like, she was always next level. That bitch was born awakened. You know what I mean? Like, she just was always this big presence, this magical energy, all of this. And she came here to light a fire under all of our asses so that we would catch up to her in this lifetime, so that we could all move forward together. And I fully believe that that's why she came for a short period of time. I mean, she used to tell us all the time, I'm going to die first. What the fuck are you guys going to do when I'm gone? I'm going to die. I'm going to die. Like, and I'm going to be the first one gone, and it's going to be soon. Like, what are you going to do? And we were like, shut up, Jubilee. You don't know what you're talking about. Like, whatever.
That's insane.
None of us wanted to face it. None of us wanted to face it. But at the end of the day, she lit the fire. And now it's my responsibility to keep the torch going and to be the light in the world that she wanted me to be. And that I promised her that I would be. So much of my spiritual journey is tied to her, because I know for a fact that my soul promised her that I would catch up, that I would reach her level, that I would do the work. And part of her also knew that if she was here, I wouldn't do my own work. I would only help her with hers. I would only protect her as she did hers, because that's what I've done every other lifetime.
Man.
And so saying like, how did Jubilee shape my spiritual journey is kind of, not that you intended it to be this way, but it's kind of a diminishing question, because she didn't shape my spiritual journey. She has shaped my spirit through all of space and time for as long as I can remember. For as long as my spirit has existed, she has walked alongside me. And she still does.
Do you feel that she was one of your soulmates or something more?
I wonder this often. Because I think I've talked to you about this before, but for those who are listening, I don't believe in twin flames. I don't believe that there's a way to sever a single soul like that. I don't think that that's real. I do believe in soul groups and soulmates and, divine counterpart type situations. But my South Node is in Gemini. And the story of Gemini is about two twins who are separated. And sometimes I wonder if she is a soulmate or a soul connection, or if she is my, I don't want to say other half in the sense of I'm not whole.
Right.
But sometimes I wonder if we came into existence in the same breath.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I follow you.
Yeah.
Follow
But I'll be honest, as I'm saying this right now, I can feel her being like, minutia of it. Like, why does it even fucking matter? We're soulmates, okay? Okay, we're soulmates. Um, I I just love you a whole fucking bunch, and that's all that has to matter. Like, I don't know why you have to have this extra definition of something else. Like, I just
Yeah.
love you, and our love has been eternal, and that's all that matters. You know?
Yeah. I think what's really interesting is that now being in the relationship that I am in, which I feel that I have called before my divine counterpart, my opinion on twin flames can be a whole episode. Um, but, you know, I feel that once I was with my partner that I'm with now, for some reason, I don't know when or how it happened, but I became clear of what every other person was, friend or more than friend. And it's just so magical when it happens, when you're with your forever person, is what I'll call it. You know, whoever you're going to finish this world kicking ass with. It's just, I now see who was just infatuation, who was a soulmate. And it's so interesting because now I think I understand more deeper when they say you will always love someone. I know the toxic view of that, but now I know the spiritual view of that, where I will always love you. Not that I will always be lingering of in love with you. No, no, no.
Mm-hmm.
But I will
Yeah.
always spiritually have love for your spirit. You were a sunshine in my life. Like, yeah. So I really, go ahead.
I think that the difference is I will always love you in an attached way and in a way that grips and holds. And then there is, I will always have unconditional love for you. I will always gift you with unconditional love, and you as a soul will always be the reminder that I hold unconditional love. And that's what Jubilee has always been for me. She has always been the reminder that I hold unconditional love for beings all around me. And that she was the first of many people in this lifetime that I will love unconditionally, and that I will love to the ends of existence, you know? But I think that it's also important to recognize that another soul is the mirror and the reflection of our own ability to love unconditionally. And that soulmate connection, that soul love versus ego love that wants to take and wants to own and wants to grasp and hold. Do you see the difference in the energy?
I'm kind of curious. Sorry, something's working in the wheels of my brain right now that I think I want to try to vocalize it and put it together as it's happening real time in my brain, just because I like the wisdom you speak on certain situations and topics. But So let me see if I can like not blank. Come on, source,
Okay.
give it back. Um, but okay, so we were just hold on. I'm trying my best here. This is why I write everything down because I will blink. But what I find interesting about unconditional love, right, is one, I gotta say that you're really strong for that because I have lost friends and I still have issues with my unconditional love. I'll be very transparent about it. Like, because I had such, well, it had such a chokehold on me, the victim mentality a lot, where my rage and everything, had really came from. But I'm wondering, how does one start their journey? So, say if they're like me, they did a lot of shadow work, they struggle with unconditional love, a lot of egotistical love, a lot of attachments. What does that light work look like? Because I'm wondering if somebody is exactly like me or similar to me, whoever's going to listen to this, and they really want to know what light work is. How do you bring that in to start learning unconditional love? Because when I lost someone, I get terrified to even try again or get close again. And there's a lot of people in the world like that. What you
Yeah.
achieved is no small thing. Like, you should be very proud of yourself.
And don't think that I'm ineffable. Like I really there are a lot of connections in my life that I have struggled with, that I have cut off, that I have, run away from for the sake of preserving my own ideas of who I am. And I'm just now getting to this space. So, I mean, as much as I love the compliment, and I will take the compliment, because you're right. It is not, let's not stroke my ego too much at the same time. I got to keep her under control. Okay. But I think that when it comes to, I don't even know that light work is necessarily the terminology that I would use, right?
Okay.
That's kind of how it came up earlier, and maybe this is an aspect of that. But I think that when people um, say light work, what they mean is, healing work. The concept of filling us, calling down light codes, filling us with light language, things of those sorts, right? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not even necessarily talking about that. I'm just talking about the recognition of your light, the same way that you're trying to recognize your shadow. Okay. And that, in that aspect, I'm speaking on journal prompts and things of that sort. The same way that we work with our shadow, working with our light, and really understanding what gifts our light brings us. I'm thinking of journal prompts like, um, when do I shine the brightest? Around what people are, like, what, I don't even want to say people, but around which vibrations do I light up? Around which passions and pursuits do I light up and become a beacon for others? Those
Mm-hmm.
kinds of questions that allow us to give recognition to the light aspect of who we are, the same way that we're trying to give recognition to the shadow aspect of who we are. I think that it's important to just recognize all aspects and all parts of us. And we spend
Mm-hmm.
so much time trying
Yeah.
to figure out these shadow aspects, these subconscious aspects that we also have been misconstrued and thinking are bad. I genuinely do not think that the shadow is a bad thing. I think it's just the socially unacceptable part of us that has been repressed and pushed into the subconscious. But we've talked a lot today about how
Mm-hmm.
the subconscious mind holds a lot of our power and a lot of our strength and a lot of our, mind's ability to adapt and to evolve. And that's fucking miraculous. And so I think that the key here is looking at again, where is it that I not even well, spirit's bringing it to me in like all sorts of different ways. It's the kind of light work that I'm talking about is what you do when you do affirmations.
Mm-hmm.
It's what you do when you recognize the good qualities in yourself. And recognizing the things that are consciously right there in the forefront, right? If the shadow is the subconscious, then the light is the conscious mind. What is it that your conscious mind is doing? What are you focused on? How can you redirect that to things that bring more love, light, and positivity into your experience? Because obviously we're off kilter here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we're in this space of focusing so much on the bad, on the dark, on the things that hurt, the things that are lower vibrational, like it's time to start pulling ourselves out of that and shifting things to focusing on the light. And we can do that, and always in a balanced way, but we can do that and start to redirect our minds, our conscious minds, to this light within us
Yeah,
and
exactly.
to the things that bring us joy and bring us into love and bring us into prosperity and bring us into confidence and, pride for who we are. And, this sense of being the magician, you know?
Yeah. And I guess, so as we come to a close, so I decided to just kind of push through the 2 hours since we had a pretty good flow going. So
Mm-hmm.
for this being the first one, maybe, I'm not going to split it into hour and hour. But I have one last question that randomly just popped in my head. So I'm just going to go with spirit on it. It's very simple, but I think it's a nice ending question.
Yeah.
And I think you might also, I think the reason why Source is giving it to me is because it's going to help you heal. Ask her the question. So, um, so my question is, what do you think hope is? What's your relationship with hope?
Wow. That's a beautiful question. Thank you, Spirit, for bringing that forth. Wow, how powerful. What is hope? I can describe what it feels like in my body.
Hmm.
Hope to me feels like a lifting of the spirit. It feels to me like a weightlessness, an unburdened perspective. Hope is hope is the acknowledgement that we are not alone.
Hmm. Okay. You always take it somewhere new for me to start thinking of things in a very different perspective, which I like and I need. A lot of other people need too. So I like that. I really like that a lot. Thank
Yeah.
you. So, yeah, thank you so much. Like, you're always just enlightening to talk to.
Oh,
Um, I'm just super stoked and happy that you are like the first person on here. Um, so
me
I guess,
too.
yeah. So I just want to thank everybody who joined in, who was here for as long as they could. And it means the world to me. Thank you so much. So I am going to let Knox have a minute to go ahead and talk about the business you do, because I just
Oh
feel like
yeah.
more people definitely need to hear that. And also, I'm afraid of like butchering the words up and having a flow. But I just want to give you that limelight time that you deserve to talk about kind of what you're doing right now with your platform and everything.
That's a really fun thing to talk about right now because I'm shifting so much at
Mm-hmm.
this present moment. So for those of you who don't know me through my social media and my TikTok and things like that, I'm Nox of Nuxers, Weaving Witchery. I am a nomadic witch on wheels. And so I travel around in my RV, and my intention is to bring together witches, wanderers, and just healers of all kinds from across the country into this collective web and network of healers that we can start to create community, yes, but there's a part of it where spirit has been drawing me to do this because it almost creates shortcuts for spirit, right? Instead of having to direct somebody to you to get them to me, to get them to somebody that I know, to get them to somebody that they know, I've already created the network in the web. You can see everybody all at once. You see what I'm saying? You can find the groups and the collectives that you need to work with. You can find the healers that you need to learn from. And it's all done through your own sense of inner discernment about, you know, who it is that you need to be working with. And so right now I'm doing a lot of different endeavors. I'm most well known for my readings. I'm a tarot and oracle reader and channel. And so I'm most well known for that. I also do energy workings, and, you know, all of that stuff can be found through my link tree and all of my socials and all of that to book one-on-one sessions with me. But more so than that, I'm really working on, you know, finding these healers that I need to be connecting. And I'm in a space of promoting different witchy and occult shops across the country, and interviewing them for like different perspectives and to understand their particular brand of healing, their particular brand of community, their particular expression of spirit. And if that's something that resonates with you and you feel called to go to them, then I've done my job here. You know, and so I'm exploring into that, and in the meantime just working my cute little butt off doing all of the readings and helping people ascend and helping with perspective in any way that I can and in any way that I feel called to.
Yeah, and I gotta say, just on the receiving end of what you do, yeah, quite literally uplifted my energy very much so. Those one-on-one readings slap very differently. Because
Sure
you
do.
can't run nowhere. You're like right there in the receiving line. It's like, oh, okay. But yeah, I do
That
think,
there's something different about it when I can make eye contact with you.
yeah, like they're the windows of the soul, man. They're the windows of the soul. Like, but
That part.
like I was saying, guys, thank you so much for joining in with me and my guest Knox on the first episode of the People Library. It was a good first run. I'm very happy. This has been a long, long, long time dream of mine, to start doing, and it's just going to get better from here. So,
Absolutely.
yes. So you guys will have a chance to find this on my YouTube. It'll be uploaded in a couple of days because editing. But yeah, but thank you guys so much. And thank you, Knox, for being here with me and being my first guest. It means the world to me. And if you want to be on my podcast, feel free to DM me on my Instagram that is linked in my TikTok bio. And we can set up a phone interview to have you on here too. I am booked through all of July. And I'm starting with August now. So
Beautiful.
yes, thank you guys so much. But honestly, Knox, beautiful as always. It's always lovely talking with you. And what a first person, because I will say before I end this live, I have to say it before I end it, that Knox was one of the first people that I have met spiritually. And I remember I was living by myself in an apartment with no friends, trying to be spiritual from a strict Christian household. And Knox was one of the people that I seen at that time who always gave me good clarity, good direction, predicted my forever person that I am currently with now. Was very accurate on that. and it's full circle for me that you would be the very first guest on my podcast. So many thanks. And it's nice to have just, somebody in this field that I can look up to, that's safe to look up to. And I appreciate you very much. You're a very beautiful person. But thank you guys so much. Yeah, I really appreciate you guys, because we're both going to start crying now. But crying is good. It shows vulnerability.
Maybe I'm cancer. I couldn't stop crying if I wanted to.
Yes, so hopefully I look so forward to having you again on here at some point, and I'm so excited for your journey. Yeah, and I'm just so excited. So I have to say happy healing as always. I always close with that. And also the quote of one of my favorite movies, The Truman Show: if I don't see you, good morning, good evening, and good night. Thank you, Knox. Thanks, everybody.
Yes, thank you so much. Love you all so much.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.